We are Brightside Home Theater.
Hey, home theater nerds, welcome to the Brightside Home Theater Podcast, a home theater podcast that's all about the experiences, the sights, the sounds, the scenes. In an emergency broadcast here, got to get out. Nothing, don't panic. Nobody's going anywhere. I had a very, very special guest I was in the middle of recording with, and they had to leave. They had to, family emergency. These things happen, and that was the show for Takeover Tuesday for tomorrow. Show I've been looking forward to for a while, and now I don't have a show for tomorrow, so I figured I'd jump on. And I'd go over some comments that I've gotten recently, talk to you guys, put this out as the Takeover Tuesday. And we're going old school, too. Another thing that I need to do this. We're counting down to our 300th episode, and that's coming up this is the 297, so we're getting there. We only have a few left, so I wanted to keep everything on track. I didn't want to not put something out, so I figured, hey, I'll record a live stream while I listen. I take some comments, and we'll talk some home theater and have some fun, and that will be, that's kind of how we all started at these Takeover Tuesdays. You guys, the listeners, were so awesome at writing in your questions, your comments, and your experiences that I had to do a Takeover Tuesday, which when my daughter was on recently, I forgot. I see you, Brock. I see you, Steve. Love you, buddy. No, I see you, John. Thanks for joining in. Scruff Kingman joining in too. So 3 episodes to our 24-hour stream. No, I won't be doing that. That was an idea I had a little while ago to do my 24-hour for the 300th, but we were trying to plan something. But that will be coming. Probably it's going to become, not probably, it's definitely coming after Cedia, probably at late September into October, maybe, something like that. But I'll be doing my 24-hour stream. Can't wait for that. But yeah, so Takeover Tuesdays, we'll get into that. I started doing these, and I was trying to think of a good name for it where the listeners, you guys are taking over the podcast. I most of my shows before I separated these things out were talking about all of your comments, and my daughter came up with it, and she's like, "What about Takeover Tuesdays?" And I was like, "Perfect. Thank you very much." And I forgot to even talk to her about that when she was on the show. But yeah, so that's listeners can take over, and then what ended up evolving to listeners come on the show, and then other people, and we just started. That's what Takeover Tuesdays have evolved into. So like I said, had a very special guest lined up, somebody you guys all are going to want to hear from when his schedule allows. Yep, I just narrowed it down to half the population by saying his. So if you didn't know already, maybe part of the part of the 24-hour stream is you driving to local listeners' home theater tour as part of it. I don't think you want to hear me talking in the car for those 24 hours. We're on our way to such and such. But I could record it and then put it out. But then that takes away from the me sitting here for 24 hours straight talking. And, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to organizing that and actually sitting down and doing a marathon stream. It doesn't help. If you want to run a marathon, it doesn't count if you run 3 days in a row, 8 miles a day. That's not a marathon. You got to do it all in a row. So I'm going to do my 24 hours. Well, I know a marathon's 27.2? Or 26.2. I don't know. I don't remember. I've never done a full one. I did a half one. So yeah, but yeah, so that'll be the 24th. So, anybody have any comments or anything like that, we'll jump on that here. But let's go back. I'm going to go let me see. Let me go backwards on what I have most recently that I don't already have images for. So, Brockstar, happy Treason Day, Steve. That came in on the live show last week, which is, I believe that's the 4th of July show. But Terry Noonan says, at last, he commenting on John Wick in 4K on Kaleidoscape and disc. Terry Noonan says, at last, finally, I get to hear Steve's original Takeover Tuesday. Great stuff. My podcast app only goes back so far, so that was fun. But I do wonder, am I the only one to listen to all the podcasts to the end? Am I the only one who loved Steve, but also Megan too? And having listened to the golden voice of the hardworking Mr. Paul Hurt, can I reference it by saying, and yes, the pun is intended, get what he did, that reference for those who hadn't heard that podcast yet. Basically, when it comes to home theater, everything we know is wrong. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Love the sounds, buddies. So thank you, Terry. I don't think you're the only one to listen all the way to the end. I'd say a majority of my YouTube listeners jump around. That's for sure. But the audio listeners, I think most of you out there are listening to the entire thing because my listenership it's mostly very passionate people about home theater and just love to hear people talk home theater. And that's how this show Takeover Tuesday started. We wanted to talk home theater and people come on and talk home theater. So I don't think you're the only one, Terry, not at all. And I wouldn't say, yes, everything we know is wrong when it comes to home theater, but that's part of what makes home theater great. And as I said with Todd last week, I'm like, where our theaters are a piece of art, and we're using our theaters to show art. And one of the more fun things that I ever learned in all of my years of art was when I was taught, like, there are no mistakes. You take those mistakes and then you work with them, right? So like if you're working in pen and ink, you can't erase it. So if you do something wrong, you have to find a way to work that in to the art. Tattoo artists do this all the time. I've done work for people with tattoos and stuff, like, how can I change this and make it look like not my ex-girlfriend's name or something like that. But that's, you take it, and a lot of times it's taking a negative, making it a positive. A lot of what Brightside Home Theater does. I love that part. And that, to me, that is exactly what our theaters are. And that's why when I was talking to Paul, talking about like these multi-million-dollar theaters that are going for perfection and built from the ground up with the purpose of perfection, that's cool. And that's something to strive for, but just to know that we're never going to get there. And that's not the point. The point of what we're doing is we're taking a living room and we're turning it into a home theater, or we're taking a room inside our house and turning it into a home theater. And if you have the ability to get some soundproofing, we're doing that for the rest of the people in the dwelling so that you don't have to hear your home theater. But damn it, if I can't do that, guess what? You're going to have to hear it, because I love home theater, and that we all do that. We've, almost everybody. Or you'll turn it down until nobody's home, and then you let it crank. Like John says all the time on the show. He's like, oh, Lydia was away, so I had it up to reference level. And it's, that's what we do. We take the flaws and we turn it into an experience that is supposed to be replicating what we did in, at the theaters, what we experienced at the theaters. And we've come so far already that most of us are already like, I just want the theaters to be as good as my home. And a lot of us are literally in our living rooms, and the theaters can't match that. And that's a testament to the tech. It's a testament to us for tweaking and working at it and talking to people and listening and learning and doing all of that and experiencing, because it's, in my opinion, that's the only way you can really learn. Even the professionals, the best way they learn is you can read everything in a book, and then you go out there and you don't know anything until you've experienced it. Right? You don't, I don't care how much, especially with home theater, especially any kind of art, you can't read it in a book. Well, unless it's Stephen King wrote a book, then you can, but that's art. But that's not what I'm talking about here. But you know what I mean? You can't read all this stuff in a book and then know it. You have to experience it to know it, and then it'll make sense what you read in the book. But yeah, it's everything we know is wrong, and how do we get it to be right? How close to right can we get in our theaters? And that's our ultimate goal. Let's see, we got a comment here from Johnny Speakers. He was one of the first people to like it. I mean, I literally put out a tweet, emergency podcast, emergency stream, and Johnny Speakers, 2 seconds later, he's like, he liked it. So I was like, all right, cool, people are listening. He says, whenever Paul is on Takeover Tuesday with that great British accent and name Paul, I pretend DJ is talking to Vision. That's great. Hey, this is live because I didn't even know the end of that comment until I read it. That's awesome. That's so true, because that's Paul Bettany. Yeah, that's awesome. Now I got to start. He's not Paul Hart anymore. He's Paul Bettany. And, oh man, for my new theater, I should have Paul voice my new theater. That would be awesome. Then I could have my own version of Vision in my theater. So instead of listening to S Lady or whatever, I could just say, hey, Paul, turn on my home theater, and then Paul Hurt's voice would come on. But now I think Steve's going to be upset. He's like, hey man, what's I'm not going to do a British accent, so I'm just trying to do a cool guy American. He's like, what's wrong with my voice? You're Steve. That's the problem, Steve. Paul's the fresh new Brit, my friend. Steve George is out. Paul Hurt's in. Let's see. Oh, TJ, put me in for the 3 a.m. slot. Why is a lot of people have asked for the 3 a.m. time slot. TJ, what location are you in? Where are you? What's 3 a.m. to you? That's the question. Like 3 a.m. to me is, could be noon for you. Good for you. Like PK over in India, I can't wait. And like, he's going to be coming on. It'll be midday for him. And I'll be like, I haven't even decided when I should start recording that, because I'm trying to, I don't necessarily want to start in the morning. But yeah, I'll probably start, probably about 10 a.m. I'm thinking. But yeah, so the AM time slots, you might be carrying the show, TJ, by then. So that'll be fun. Let's see, what else have we got? What I don't get, Brock. What does this mean? Let him on a plane once? Who? Paul? Let's see. What else we got? Brock, sorry, he left. All right, let me go back to another comment here, because those keep me busy. We said shout out projector. Nope, that one's going in the show tomorrow from AV Science. Preview to tomorrow. What a great question, too. Here's a tease, a huge tease from the guys from Mike, Craig, and Jeff at AV Science. They asked a fantastic question that I bet you we're going to open the show with it. They made their donation, so they get to go to the front of the show. And they made a donation, and they asked a question, and it has to do with projectors. And I can't wait, because on its face, it seems like a pretty simple answer. But I know our crowd. I know our group. I know I'm like, it's not as simple as it may seem. And I can't wait to talk to John and Steve about this one. It's going to be a good, I think, debate. And especially at first, everybody's going to be like, oh, that's easy. Yeah, from your perspective. But what if somebody has a different perspective? That's kind of what changes things, right? All right, another comment. Live stream. This is from Steve at live stream of Home Theater Chat with Todd Anderson. Steve says, I'm all in on SACT from Chana and Joe. It really gives you a lot of opportunity to access your system. I agree. If you have a Trinnov, you might not use it for tweaking besides the calibration. I run the speaker call out once a month after I found a speaker cable pulled out of one of the amps was missing right front height. Yeah, so it's pulled out of one of the amps. I want to look at the Spears and Munsell disc too, especially for the video calibration. The walk around the room torture test is great. Yeah, so that spatial audio disc, I can't wait to get it. They're sending me one. But yeah, I can't wait to get that. They are so much fun. And like I said with Todd, going back to the Video Essentials and doing that, they had the walk around the room. So I can't remember if it was Chana or Joe, but they use their voice to do the walk around the room. That's a lot of fun. And like I said, get this, if you don't have a Video Essentials, get this one. Just because, even if you do have a Video Essentials, get this one because and I'll talk about it when I get it in here too, but it's so much fun to demonstrate for people when they come to your house, come to your theater, and you want to show something off. You don't need to, absolutely, you don't need to go to a scene because sometimes that might take so long. If you just have this and you pop it in and you can do, this is what my system can do, and it kind of isolates a lot more because that's how you calibrate your system. But that really amazes people too. When they hear that discreteness and it goes around the room like that, never mind tweaking your system, which we all love to do, but it is a tool for somebody that, maybe shows a mild interest in what you're talking about, like having a home theater and they're like, oh, this is pretty cool. What else can and you pop this thing in and you do some of that torture test stuff or bass sweeps and you show how it like goes down low, like how low it goes. People don't even know what that stuff means. Yeah, I can't wait to get mine in. Another one from Steve says, my son, who isn't into home theater, was sitting near me while I started watching, and he laughed when he heard you guys talking about falling asleep to specific movies. He's been doing that for nearly 30 years. His trigger is Jurassic Park. He has it stored in the DVR permanently, besides having the disc in his bedroom and Plex on his TV and phone. I thought you said he isn't into home theater. Sounds like he has a pretty complicated system. He says by the time the helicopter lands at the dig site, he's out. Yeah, that's Steve, that sounds like me with Avengers. I used to have Avengers before Disney Plus. I had Avengers saved on my DVR, and I don't even remember where I DVR'd it from. Probably like HBO Max or something, or HBO or something. When I had this was going back to my Dish television days, so I had saved it, and every night I go to bed, put that on, and it works. It works so well for me. I don't expect it to work for everybody. It definitely doesn't work for my wife, and she's amazing and that she even puts up with it, but she has an easier time falling asleep. So I put this on, she just falls asleep, but she'll wake up in the middle of the night and then she'll put on one of her shows and I'll be like, what happened? I'll wake up and she's like, oh. And she'll be a half hour into a show or something and be like, all right, I got to put something. But like right now it's Big Bang Theory. You got to put that back on till he falls asleep and then I'll change it again. But yeah, it's Avengers. I was always asleep before the entire opening scene, before we are at war, right? And that's the opening scene when I think Fury says like, we are at war. And then the words come in, the Avengers words title sequence comes up. I was always asleep before that. Put it on. And I know the noises too, like the Tesseract. It's like the Tesseract and the noise coming in has awakened and, on a little world. Oh my God. Yeah. Listen to it every night. I also use that scene and that movie for sure I've mentioned it. Amazingly enough, it's for 4K, for the difference between HDR, 4K, all of that, and 1080p and 4K, because that was, 2012. And I'd seen demos, 4K demos, and they were using that scene, especially the end scene, one of the endings, one of the scenes at the end with when Tony Stark comes up on Loki in Stark Tower, and Tony's stalling, putting the bracelets on. But I just remember watching that scene and being like, oh my God, I mean, this is 4K, this is HDR. And some of the demos I heard, one demo was in Framingham, and I forget the place I was in. It wasn't Natural Sound, but they were the ones that told me that it they were hard up conversion. There was serious processing going on, and they were trying to be honest with me, like, you're not going to find this you're not going to be able to get this for a while, because at the time 4K was so new, there wasn't a 4K disc of that movie. They got these scenes to show it off. They download them, they put them through. I don't know if they were running video processing I'm sure they were of some sort, but it was amazing. Absolutely amazing picture, like 3D like. And then you go home, and at the time I only had a 1080p projector, didn't have the black levels that we have today. And you just like drooled over it. And you want to get there, and you think about where we are today, and we're there. And it's pretty cool to see that progression, and it's those advancements are coming faster and faster. Let's see, we got here. Any other comments? Oh, TJ's Eastern time. That's cool. What's this? Van Gool and I are trying to get you on Daily Hi-Fi. Cool. That would be fun. That would be a lot of. I'll go anywhere and talk to anybody. I'll sit down with experts. I'll sit down with professionals. I'll sit down with, people that are just enthusiasts and they're starting a podcast. I mean, it's a blast. We all have something to offer. Don't be intimidated, and everybody out there, don't be intimidated by experts, because, I got news for you. All of these experts out there, the ones I've talked to, they're phenomenal. They're great people. That don't be intimidated by them. I used to be. I remember the first time I would say the first expert was Brent Butterworth, and I was like, my hands were shaking when I was typing to him on my phone at work, and it was just like a whim. Tom Andry was the one. He's like, just email him. Don't panic. Just email him. Ask him what you want. He's a normal guy. And I did. I hung up with Tom, and I was like, and I emailed him, and I was like, I can't believe I just did that. I just emailed Brent Butterworth, and I was so psyched. And he's been amazing. They're great people. And what's funny is they're professionals, and they're so encouraging of people like us, the enthusiasts that just are out here experiencing it, because I know from talking to them, even before I had a podcast, they're like Jim, my buddy Jim, loves to talk to people like us that are looking to, we're sponges. It's no fun doing their job when you go into a house and the people don't care, and they just want, my TV isn't working right, or it doesn't look right. And they go in, and it's like, they're not looking for the nice upgrade. They're looking for, it just doesn't look right to me. Okay. And that's what they do for them. And it's no fun. And I get the same thing with what I do. I love going to people's houses. I charge almost 3 times as much to go to somebody's house and do their car as I do for a dealership. Dealerships don't care. They're literally, when I do the job at a dealership, I'm fixing a bumper. It's a small scuff. It doesn't need a body shop, but I fix it. I get it. And they're like, all right, that looks great. And get it out. They're trying to hide it from a customer usually. And they don't appreciate it. They're just happy the job's done. But when I go to somebody's house, which I have to charge more, because when I go to a dealership, I do like 5 to 10 cars. I go to a house, I just do 1. So it's a lot of time. But those people are so happy that I'm there. And they just want to sit and talk and watch what I do. And it's just like the people that come to your house. So like all the professionals I've known that have come to my house for my theater, they're just like, oh, you want to talk to me? I've yet to run into one, but I have heard people say, heard experiences of AV professionals that don't want to talk to you. They just want to get in and get out. And I'm like, don't ever call them back, because they're not, in my opinion, and in most of the real professionals' opinion, they're not professionals. They're probably not even doing the job right, in my opinion. Let's see. Let's see. Johnny, do you listen to his, Daily Hi-Fi. Okay. They're talking about Daily Hi-Fi. Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to go on any podcasts. So, let's see what else. Another comment here. That's what's funny. I'm trying to keep things going. That's the way I am. I don't like to have gaps in audio. So I kind of got to keep talking while I'm looking for what I'm going to talk about next. Audioholics podcast. This is Ren. I'm sorry. David, he says, hi, I am a subscriber and I've been listening to your podcast for almost a year. Love the show and thank you for keeping us entertained. I'm trying. On episode 291, you recommended an Audioholics podcast that I cannot seem to find on my Apple podcast. When I search, I get Audioholics with Gene Della Sala, but there's nothing new for 2023 on his podcast. Any help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, David. So yeah, I forwarded on the link to the actual podcast, the Audioholics podcast that was with Brent and oh man, I forget his name off the top of my head right now, and I'm all by myself, so I can't. Sorry, buddy. And I've talked to him, and anyways, but it used to be them, and now it's a new guy, and I don't listen to it as religiously as I did when Brent was on there, but it's a great podcast. It was in the show notes, and but it's mostly about 2-channel now, but they do a little bit of crossing over into home theater every now and then. Those are the ones I try to listen to. But yeah, that was a good one. So, but yeah, it's a great question. If you're ever not 100% familiar with what we're talking about, just email me. I try to pretty much reply to everybody's emails and their comments and stuff. Especially now, since I'm not sure if they're going to be making the show, because we're getting more and more and stuff like that. It's like, I love when I hear from somebody new and they'll be like, I've been listening for a year or 2 years. And it's like, I've never heard of them. And it's like, that's so cool. Cause I know there's a lot out there, so I appreciate it. Let's see. Live stream of show 293. Mike Wright says, Brightside Home Theater. Thanks. Truly love this and that podcast. I love to hear how everybody got into home theater. So fun to hear. Brings back a lot of great memories. Doesn't it? Everybody I've had on, the most common one pretty much is Star Wars, right? Everybody, it all seems to start there. And I don't think that's a coincidence. George Lucas was trying to start something with Star Wars. He was trying to advance the theater going experience. And then as technology took off, here's a question that we haven't talked about, and we've danced around it. What was car audio like before the 80s? My dad really didn't get it. When he was in the military, he was in the motor pool, and their mantra was, can fix anything that didn't float or fly. So he worked on tanks, everything. And was like, Dad, did you work on this? And he'd yell back the mantra to me. So, and what's funny is here's a nice tangent going off on my dad. I met a lot of the guys that I say a lot, probably a handful, like 5 or 6 of the guys he was over in Vietnam with. And you know how I know I embellish stuff. I'll be like, I'll tell my old hockey stories or something, and I'll tell you I put a guy through the glass or something, and I never did. I've never said that either, but you know what I mean? Like you'll embellish, like, it was an amazing goal, but I'll always tell the truth too. I'll be like, I came back to the bench once. I scored this goal. I went upstairs, backhand under the bar, and everybody on the bench was like, "Oh my God, that was amazing!" And they're like, "Well, one, because I was the worst guy on the team," and they're like, "How'd you do that?" And I said, "I don't know." It's like the puck accidentally flipped up. I hit it and it went there. I don't know what I did. So, but yeah, so sometimes I'll tell just the front part of that story that it was an amazing goal, but you embellish. My dad told me all these amazing stories from Vietnam, and it's kind of where Brightside came from, because he was over there he came home in 69, went over in 67, and everything was entertaining. Everything. Oh, dude, yeah, we used to get like, oh, this snake popped up in the barracks and the guy is just, he unloaded on it, and any kind of species, we got to turn it into medical because they got to research this stuff. They want to know what's around. They didn't know what it was. He put so much lead in it. We didn't know what it was. Great story. Another story, air raid. Oh, we've started, this guy's in the shower and it's like, oh, air raid, we're getting attacked. He comes running out in his towel, dives in the mud, and is like, he's there with this M16. He's like, oh, we were laughing at him. Oh, it's like he glosses over the air raid part. That's what but I'm like, you think as you grow up and you learn, people embellish a little bit. So maybe he did. Nope. All the guys, started telling these same stories. You're like, oh my God, they're all like true. Like how we got where it was amazing. But anyways, I don't even know how I got there. How did I get there? I don't even know what I was talking about. Let's see, back up. How everybody got to where we were. Star Wars, 80s. Oh yeah, audio, car audio. Chris Brown, what did you miss? Not much. Just had an emergency because the guest for tomorrow's Takeover Tuesday had an emergency while we were recording, so I had no show. So guess what, Chris? We're all part of the show right now. This is going to be tomorrow's show. So what I was just talking about, I'm like, where did car audio, where was that into 70s and 60s, 50s? I don't know if people were upgrading their car audio. And I mean, it could just be me. Maybe they were. I don't know. But I know in the 80s, that was a big deal. Starting to upgrade your car audio. Crutchfield, it was a magazine at the time. It was a catalog at the time. And you call them up. They had a great support line. Anybody could become an installer if you had their phone number, because God knows I did. You need a stereo? Here, pick one. I'll order it for you. Boom, 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 because they send you the instructions. You got a hotline. It was great. So I'm wondering is it possible that home theater actually, and a lot of listeners have said that, we've all started, like we tweaked our cars, we did everything we could with them, but there's only so much you can do in a car, because now you're at the limitations of, one, it's a lot smaller, and two, you can only improve the sound so much because you're in a moving vehicle, there's road noise, and I did the Dynamat stuff, I did the sound dampening, and you're still in a damn car, and it's like, I did I went separates. I did the whole thing. Everything you can do in a theater, I did in a car. I went to tweeters up high, mid-range, bass, separate speakers, separate amplifiers, everything. When CDs came out, CD changers in the car, all of that. Big fun. Is it possible that with the advancements of that, you see what we're doing, you see how it played out, and we're like, all right, we all grew up and we started home theater. And I know, talking with Brent or anybody that started in the 80s, John and I, we did the car stereo, we all advanced like that. It's like, is that what it was? Is that part of the evolution of home theater? And, I don't know, but it is fun. It brings back a lot of great memories. It's hearing all of these different people, and people apologize all the time. I'm sorry. I know you've heard this before. No, I love to hear it again. You guys, the listeners, love to hear this. It's not, I've yet to be like, here we go. We got to talk about Star Wars again. I'm like, no way. Because everybody and that's the other thing. Everybody has a different perspective. It might be the same starting point. We might be talking the same thing, but everybody has a different perspective of it, right? Like some people, like in my house, my dad took me to Star Wars. but he wasn't a big home theater guy. He wasn't a big movies guy. I have other people that, like, my dad was big into home theater, like Paul Hurt. Same thing. He was big into home. His dad was into home theater. So the idea of it. And so everybody has a different way of coming about it, but it all seems to start around the same area, the same time. Let's see, what's this? Scruffman. I've seen some vans of the 70s with home audio stereo racks in them. Yep. Yeah. I remember that too. They'd be mounting them up high, especially in those Volkswagen minivans and stuff. My uncle had a TV in his minivan. He was a hunter. I remember he had a big green van that he would take hunting. And he would sleep in it. But it was a regular size. It was a conversion van, but it wasn't a special like trailer or like camper or anything like that. But he converted. But he had a TV in that, and he had a nice sound system. So, but again, that was all 70s into 80s, mostly 80s. So yeah, I'm wondering if that's, and then home theater really became bigger into the 90s. That's where it really kind of took off. Obviously, you heard about it if you were interested. It was hard. It was hard to find information, and that's why I always go back to like Siskel and Ebert and Roger Siskel, and Ebert, Siskel and Ebert, Roger Ebert, Gene Siskel. Yeah, Gene Siskel, Roger Ebert. He was the bigger proponent of home theater. He used to do the tours. He showed off his theater, which was like a 45-inch giant tube television. And that's probably my first being able to see a home theater and going, I think I can do that somehow. I'll find a way. And then the more you look into it, and he was one of the people that used to show off like projector systems and talk about the producers and directors in Hollywood would have these screening rooms in their theaters. So yeah, and that was all in the 80s. I was too young in the 70s, so I was born in 1970, so maybe some of that was around, but it was the ball was rolling. Let's say maybe it started in the 70s, but really picked up in the late 80s. In really home theater for you and I, it was probably into the 90s. Everything before then was really sketchy. Like you had to build it yourself out of, like I did, car speakers. Let's see, TJ 8311. Yep, I remember guys with bookshelf speakers in the back windshield, so the sound would bounce off the glass. Yeah, that's safe. But yeah, no, I know. I knew guys that actually took their 6x9s and they didn't know how to cut out the pieces, and they just wire it. They poke a hole and get the wire up and just sit those on the back deck. And yes, and this one here from Scruff Kingman says quadraphonic sound, I think, was a precursor to surround sound. Yes, absolutely. But it wasn't as sophisticated from what I remember. Some of it was, and that could also be me back then. I was like, my first home theater was as many speakers as I could do. And there was a button on my receivers or whatever I had processing, quotation fingers, because it was minimal processing back then, compared to what we do today. It was all channels driven, so you would send the same signal to everything. So basically, you were just trying to get sound into every corner of the room, and that's what you were trying to duplicate trying to duplicate the theater going experience. It's like you just sat in your room, and I had a standard VHS player and VCR that you needed hi-fi VCR anyways to be able to get the really good sound, get stereo imaging and stuff. But if you just had a standard VCR, it didn't matter anyways, because it was a mono signal coming out, and you just sent all the signals, and you were just like, wow, that's amazing. That's Die Hard. It sounds just like when I was in the movies. And to be fair, it probably did back then, because some of the movie theaters, especially the ones we had in Franklin, were just like crap, and they would just give it to them loud, and they're happy, and that's kind of lived on to today, and we call it IMAX. No, just kidding. Get a lot of comments about that. So that was the progression, and and then you start to learn it. It was like you had the quadraphonic surround sound, Dolby surround sound. Then they went to ProLogic, and ProLogic, all that meant was you took your surround sound was 3 channels. You had your left, right, and rear channel. And then you made the rear channel was matrixed off into 2. So you'd have 4, but it was only a 3-channel system. ProLogic then just became still the 3-channel system. But what they did is they matrixed the front 2 and they created a center channel so that you could obviously have the dialogue coming from the middle of the, anything that was supposed to be imaged to the middle, that's what they did. So that's why they called it logic. Logically, that's where you want the sound to be coming from. Then, that created a whole new speaker market because you had to have shielded speakers so the magnets didn't affect the CRT televisions, because everybody took their speakers that you'd been sitting on your top of your TV like this. If you put it on your TV, you'd turn it on its side. So they had to redo that, because up until then, why would you ever turn a speaker on its side? You never did. This is the way speakers go. Tower speakers, this, that, and the other thing. So then after ProLogic came AC3, which was the third audio codec, which became Dolby Digital 5.1, but AC3 was 5.1, but it was you could only do it on Laserdisc because it needed to be done digitally. If you didn't have the right Laserdisc, you had to upgrade your Laserdisc player. You had to get the Laserdisc with the right coding. I think it was I can't remember which coding it was. I think it was the Toslink or something like that. I can't remember which connection it was for the Laserdisc player, but then you had to have the receiver that would do that and all that. But, if you went to your local hi-fi store or like a Circuit City, they told you, oh, no, you can get this plays everything. It's perfect. So, and then Dolby Digital took off from there. It was after that, once DVD took off, that's when we had, 5.1 kind of really took off. After that, everything's been discrete ever since then. AC3 was the first discrete one. I can't comment. What's this? I can't comment on, this is Scruff Kingman says, I can't comment on Flicks Connection YouTube channel, but he might be a good guest on here too. That's a good one. Good comment. Scruff Kingman. I'm trying to come up with a short name I'm going to call you Scruffy. It's too hard to keep saying that. Anybody that wants to come on, email me. It's getting harder for me to track people down and do that. But if you want to come on in these Takeover Tuesdays, any of you guys, I've got, look at it in the chat here. We got Chris Brown, Scruffy, TJ, we got Johnny Speakers, who's been on many times, but I'll have you back on again, buddy. If you have a topic you want to talk about, John Brock, I'm going to hold off on saying, John Brock, you can come back on, because he'll jump on right now. No, I'm just kidding. Anytime anybody wants to come on, just email me, dj@brightsidehometheater.com, and say you want to come on. John Brock knows, Johnny Speakers knows, you guys, the people that have been on, they know you don't even need a subject, because we'll make it work. But if you have a subject, if there's something that sparks, like something we said, and the best would be, what would be so cool is if somebody came on and they wanted to challenge me and say, tell me I'm wrong, or you found something that I'm saying that's just driving you crazy. Right? Carl was great at that. It is great at that. He's not questioning. What's funny is that's why Carl and we have a really good relationship, because he questioned me so much at the beginning. And I've said it to listeners. I've said it to you guys in the past. If you're new to the show, this is for you. But he questioned me on anything and everything. And he was telling me to cite my sources. And the hard thing for me is I can't do that. I am not, I'm not Rob from AV Rant, right? I can't, like Rob, he reads this stuff in articles, or he reads the manuals. He's very good at doing that. But my stuff comes from the experiences. That's why I leaned into that for the show. The sights, the sounds, the scene, it's all about the experiences. And I learned all this stuff through my experiences. And so what ends up happening is when somebody goes, well, can you cite that? I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry, but it's out there. Look it up. You'll find it. And what Carl ended up finding out was, he's like, well, how am I supposed to trust you? I go, I'm not telling you to trust me. I'm just telling you how I see it. And these are my experiences. If you listen long enough, and this is what I said to Carl, I go, hopefully, if you stick around long enough, I know you doubt me and I don't blame you. All of you guys doubt me. Absolutely. But if you stick around long enough, you'll start to see the consistency. You'll start to see what I'm talking about, what I have learned over 30 years, right? And that's all I'm speaking to. And yeah, I see articles and I'll read articles, and I know what I think is right in them and what is wrong in them. And it's really, Greg, my son-in-law, is having a really hard time right now, home theater wise, because he loves to he's a sponge. He just loves to absorb information. And the internet is a great place to absorb. You can get information on anything, and there's tons of it. And a lot of listeners listening right now know, they've emailed me about things. I've done in-depth research for people. I've talked to professionals for people because they've found inconsistencies in opinions and they wanted to know the truth. And what's really hard is the internet's filled with information. And let's say 50% of it is perfect and the other 50% is absolute garbage. But if you're looking for correct information on the internet, you don't know which is which, because if you knew, you wouldn't be looking for it. So it's really hard for people when you're trying to research something, especially in home theater, because everything is, it makes sense. That person is saying it, whether it's a YouTube video like this one, or it's a forum. It makes sense. Okay, I guess. And then you try to implement it, or you do what they said, and you're like, all right, I guess I'm getting what they said. But that's the thing. It's like, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. I'll tell you, the latest one from Greg was, told him, don't get a downfiring subwoofer in a hardwood floor because the bass reflections are going to be so bad reflecting into a hardwood floor that it's going to be all like muffled and bloated. And I'm like, no, like downfire. No, so they tell you people take their side firing and they'll face them at a wall, or the waves are going to be so good. Or like, let's just think of it baffles me that people can say this, because you're like, so a piece of carpet is going to muffle a 50-something foot bass wave? What? A piece of carpet isn't a bass trap. So you're telling me there's a difference between the reflection from the carpet or a hardwood floor? Never mind all the other logistics that just went out the window because that you made that statement. But you see what I mean? It doesn't make, now where did that person get that from? I don't know. Like, did they experience that? Is it a piss poor? I'll tell you, there's a lot of shitty subwoofers. Sorry. Look at me. There's a lot of crappy subwoofers out there that are downfiring, and they're utilizing that localization because now you're most likely going to put it into a corner. So you're not going to fire it into the room. So you're going for that corner effect, and they're trying to do something. They're trying to get more out of that sub than they can really get by doing that. And yeah, that's going to sound bloated but that's not because of the floor. That's because it's a crappy subwoofer. And it's like, you call SVS and they're like, face it whatever the hell way you want to face it. It doesn't matter. It's a subwoofer. It's going to make the sound. I don't care if you face it at the wall, face it the other way, face it upside. Just, you don't want it face down. You don't want the woofer hitting the floor, but if there's space there, doesn't matter. So it's that kind of information. But that's the conversation Greg and I had. He's like, I wouldn't have known that. I'm like, I know you wouldn't have. And that's what's sad. And it's like, that's bad information, but there's some great information out there. Let's see. Chris. Yes, I am coming out to Cedia. I will be there. I have my plane tickets. I have my hotel, all courtesy of my wife. She's my travel agent. She's coming with me. But yeah, so I am coming out to Cedia, and I will be there. I believe we come in on Thursday. My wife's a teacher, so we're flying out of here Thursday morning of that week, and then we come back on Sunday. So I will be there through Sunday morning. I fly out. So anybody that's going to Cedia, I will be there. I have zero plans for like what I'm going to record, what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some recording stuff with me. If I use it, I use it. If I don't, I don't. I've been talking to Todd off and on, talking to Brett Bjorkquist off and on, Joe Klosnick. They're all trying to help me understand what I'm in for. Just because it's like, it's very overwhelming, and I just want to have fun. I'm not there as obviously I'm not an integrator. I'm not an installer. I don't want to be. I was going to take some classes, and pretty much everybody told me don't bother. You know, Joe's an installer. Joe Klosnick, he takes the courses. He takes everything like that, gets the refresher courses, but he's like, if you're not making any money, don't waste the time and the money on it, because it's not really much you're going to do with it. And there's not really much in there that you don't already know. And like, unless you're going to go into like HVAC and stuff like that, you know, like how to get into it, there's really not much like theater experience wise you're going to gain from sitting there. And I'm like, okay, all right. I've taken almost all of my coaching credentials to be able to coach hockey, just because I like to go and sit and listen to the information. And they're like, no, you'll have more fun like meeting people, wandering around, talking than you would sitting in a class. So don't waste the time. I'm like, okay. So stuff like that. I have no idea. I'm getting invites now because I've signed up. I got my credentials and stuff, and now people are inviting me to their booths, and I'm like, is that real? I don't know. Do I have to make an appointment? I don't know. So it'll be fun. Let's see. Chris, I don't have a ticket, but I live less than 15 minutes from the convention center. So happy to have people come by and see my theater, or I can meet up downtown as well. Oh, cool. Let's make that a plan, Chris. Absolutely. I'd love to come by and see your theater. I'm sure there'll be a night or something after dinner or something like that. I'll be happy to come out. I don't know if I'm going to have a vehicle, but I'm pretty sure I can probably just Uber if you're 15 minutes away. Usually when I travel, I like to get a vehicle because I hate to be stuck in one place. But I think our hotel, I think I'm either in the hotel with the convention center, but it's like the convention center is here and I'm like directly across the street. So I literally don't have to go anywhere if I don't want to. So we'll figure it out. Chris, I can pick you up. There we go. Yeah, but what if I don't like you? Then it's harder to get away. Just kidding, buddy. That's Irish humor. Sorry. Scruffy says the key to finding bad information, or should I say opinionated facts, is to look for phrases. What I think, what I would do, or in my opinion, then take how you will. Yes, absolutely. I've taught a lot of people this, most importantly, my kids. And the other part is try to figure out where their motivation is coming from. Like, why are they telling you this? Especially, obviously, if you're getting, opinions that you didn't even ask for, and like you just saying, like you post your theater somewhere or pictures, and then people start telling you it's bad, or they tell you got to do this. That's bad. But a lot of times, even watching videos, where are they coming from? Why are they talking about this one? A lot of websites look at what are they doing? Are they just reviewing? Are they selling? Are there links to buy? There's a lot of stuff there that, do they compare favorably to other things, or are they saying, this is the one to go with and absolutely the best? Especially that's a huge one to me. If anybody in my line of work, what I do, I never tell anybody 100%. I never tell anybody I will fix your car and it's going to be beautiful. It'll be 100%. It's going to be awesome. And there are guys that'll do that. That do what I do. They'll tell you how awesome it's going to be. And that's a bad thing to do, because you're setting yourself up for failure, because nothing is ever 100% with what we do. Your car has been damaged. You're never getting back to OEM. I can guarantee you that. And so you're setting your stake, you're setting the bar too high. So you're always going to be disappointed after that. And if somebody is telling you this is the absolute thing you need to have, or you should get this because it's the best, I can guarantee you in our market, I'll tell you, email me. I'll tell you something better. It's like, so right away they're wrong. And if you're in our market, and if you're listening to this podcast and you can afford the absolute best, get on my show, please, and sponsor me on Patreon, please, because, give me 1% of what you make in a year and I could retire, because that's the people that can afford the absolute best. I haven't told this story in a while. Maybe I'll tell it right now. Here we go. Dave, my Laserdisc guy, had a guy come in and say sky's the limit, money's no object. And he wanted Dave to put it in a home theater for him. And the guy Dave's like, no, I need a budget. I have to start at something. And the guy thought he was all that. It's probably, pulled up in his BMW and he thought he was great and this, that, and the other thing. And look at this. I'm making bank, baby. Sky's the limit. Whatever you can dream of, I can afford. So Dave pulled out his books and he said, here we go. So we'll start with some speaker cable. Here we go. Do we want to go with this one here? This one here, $150 a foot. So we're going to need, how many speakers? We're going to do 5. Do you want to do some heights too? We're going to go 7 speakers. What? 150 what? Yeah, well, how big's your room? So your room's 20 feet long. So we got to get around the side. And the guy's like panicking. $150 a foot. We haven't even gotten to what speakers we're putting in yet. But it was $150 a foot for speaker cable. And this is in like 1994. So $150 was probably what this guy was making a week, thinking he's rich. But there is no sky's the limit. You have to have a budget. And if you think that you know what the best is, you probably don't know what the best is. If you're recommending it to somebody that's like asking you for an opinion, because most of the people that can afford what the best is, they don't ask anybody anything. They just say, I want a home theater, and then give them the money and they get the best, or they, you know what I mean? It's like, they're not talking about it. They hired a guy to put one in for them. The guy they hired isn't even the guy that's installing it. He's just their help. He's just his manager. It's insane. And it's fun to see though, that kind of theater and that kind of money, because you can't even fathom it. So yeah. All right. So let's see. Next one, Blue Wave. Let's go to another comment here. Home theater experience, 65 in 4K. That's going back a little bit. Great show, gentlemen. The 65 disc was a great home theater experience. What did you expect coming from Sony? Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves was another great experience and surprised me for just being a decent fantasy movie prior to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Fantasy movies were seen as kind of a joke. It's not a genre that's easy to pull off. Netflix's Extraction 2 looked good, but sounded a little muted to me. the streaming movie dynamics problem strikes again. Streaming movies that don't have that problem, Tomorrow War, Rings of Power, Wheel of Time, The Adam Project, Foundation, etc. I guess it's just the way the audio is engineered. Guess how long ago that one came in from Blue Wave. We're all looking at it differently now that we've talked to Paul, and how things are engineered and stuff like that. I can't wait for Paul to get a hold of Foundation. That is my favorite show. One of my favorite shows. It is actually, ironically, that show alone becomes a foundation of my home theater. The name Foundation. And I'll tell you why. So Star Wars, obviously. Star Wars, because it started me down the path and I wanted to duplicate that experience. Die Hard, one of my favorite movies and one of the first that I tried to, that was 1988, and I remember getting the VHS. That's a Foundation movie. T2 for its special effects. I think that was one of the first movies I watched, along with Star Wars, Die Hard, and then in Dolby, ProLogic, true separation with a pan, because you could get good pans with ProLogic on the VHS tapes. There was that. So those are my three big, up until I can't even think of the next one. I can't think of something in between, because nothing's made me go, wow, until it was the show Foundation. And that's the show that pushed me over the limit as far as picture quality. I've said to you guys a lot, don't buy a video processor because I have one. Or anybody has one, right? Don't buy a Kaleidoscape because I have it. Don't buy anything that anybody has just because they have it. Buy it because it's something that you want, that you think that is going to make your experience better, because you see a problem. You've got to see the problem first before you can upgrade your piece. That's why I always recommend people getting their home, just get a big screen. If you're new to home theater, you're just getting into it, and you're tired of just sitting there watching a 50-inch or 45-inch television, and you want a big screen, and what's the best one I can get? Well, that's subjective, because you don't know what the best is, and you don't know the difference between the best and the worst. And televisions now get the tech in them gets outdated so fast that it's not a bad idea to just get the largest version you can afford, and then wait and learn. And when you start to notice some flaws, if you ever, Chris, that made me laugh. I blame you for my Kaleidoscape purchase. Okay. Are you mad at me? So, I don't think you are. I don't know anybody because I never told anybody to get one, for one, but I don't know I don't know of any Kaleidoscape purchases that people have been like, that was dumb, I'm returning that. But back to the television thing. You don't know what the flaws are. And if you never learn what the flaws are, why waste the money on all of that technology that goes into that large screen and a great picture? If you don't know what a great picture is, why waste the money? Put it into something else, maybe another hobby or speakers or whatever. So it's very important to don't chase people because of you think that's going to be better, because if you do that, you're more often than not, you're going to be disappointed, because you're not going to understand what you just bought and why you just paid whatever you paid. Because say Kaleidoscape, for instance, if you're not familiar with it and you just buy it because you think that's what the greatest thing is, but then you get it and go, I don't get it. Yeah, I don't have to put my discs in, but I don't understand why this is so great. That's a lot of money I just paid. Why am I doing this? And you might not even get the learning curve because you're going to be so disappointed with, okay, great. Well, it just plays and there's my movies, but now I got to buy all my movies again. You need to see and understand the flaw in whatever it is for that piece to appreciate that piece. And for me, with a Kaleidoscape, I love to watch scenes in movies and just jump around. And for me to do that, and I did it for years, is you'd put in a movie and then you'd have to fast forward and chapter and then back and then do this and be like, yeah, I watched that scene. And then, I mean, how many times we used to do this when you're watching cable television or something and you're watching a movie and you'd be like, oh my God, I haven't seen Ethan Hawke in anything for a while, but there he is. And then you're watching another movie and you're like, he's in this one too. And then you're like, I remember him with Uma Thurman. I got to find that movie. Where is it? And you go down to your theater and you boom, 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 and you got to do that. Well, now you got to find the movie in your rack. You got to turn on this. Now I'm just like, boom, there we go. And you pull it up and you're off and running. And then I'll be like, Uma Thurman, Pulp Fiction. Thank you very much. I'm going to pop that on. Oh, let's go to the dance scene. Boom, right there on the collect. And you're like, boom. You're cooking. So I don't waste time getting stuff. That's a flaw for me. That might not be a flaw for you. So you wouldn't get that appreciation. I had somebody write me on YouTube just the other day, like, on Kaleidoscape, does it dim the lights and do all this? I'm like, yep, it's capable of all that. Now, there's some programming. You have to do stuff with that. But if that's something you want, it will do that. It will help you do that because it's going to flag everything and it's going to do it in a way that, yeah, you can do it with another way. You can do it with your harmony. You can do it here. You can do it there. But these things are so integrated. You push play and then your lights don't dim until you get to that part of the movie and it's like, oh, that opening part's over. As the poof, lights go down. Oh, fantastic. Or you've got an end credit scene. Lights go back down again. They come on when the credits go up. They go down because it's all flagged. I don't utilize that. I don't have that kind of system yet. I hope I get that someday. But those are flaws. Back to Foundation. I was having a hell of a time with my streaming. So at the time I was using a Zapiti, I was using a Panasonic 820, and I was using an Apple TV Plus. An Apple TV 4K, sorry. And what was happening is my Panasonic was cranking, looked fantastic. The Zapiti looked fantastic. I can say it looked fantastic. There were flaws in it because on certain titles or scenes, I should say, there were flaws in it on certain scenes, but then other scenes, it was actually better than the Panasonic. Okay. So what was happening, because I run a projector, and what was happening is on the Panasonic, it has that HDR optimization, the Panasonic. So what it does is it smooths everything out for you, the information wise, so that when your projector is more capable of handling it. So basically the optimizer just says, okay, we're not going to send any contrast greater than this. So you're getting, you tell it the certain, I can't remember if it's lumens or nits or whatever the hell it is inside your Panasonic. It's been so long since I've set that. But basically you're optimizing it for a projector. So it'll only send what it can handle, right? There's a PD, not so, it sends full signal. You're getting everything. But now your projector is going to have to handle that. And when you get into an extremely dark scene, which has some brights in it, it's the projector, and my projector couldn't handle it. The Sony 295, it couldn't handle it. And I was getting some crushing going up in like Harry Potter in the first one, when you have that, the lanterns are really, really bright. Then they have a nice glow to them, and you have almost a jet black background. And the processing in the projector, this is where the JVC shines. It has some tone mapping, and its tone mapping is a level above the Panasonic. Okay, so it's kind of doing the same thing, but it's tone mapping it so that it can handle anything that's thrown at it, and it gives you won't get that kind of, crushing. It handles it. I couldn't, so that didn't work. Like on that Harry Potter scene, not so good. But then on other scenes, like I'd be watching, say, Die Hard, for instance, and I was getting some colors on the Zapiti and vibrancy that I wasn't getting. And these are all like normal scenes, like the scene in Die Hard when he first gets to the Nakatomi Plaza and Nakatomi Tower, and he gets to the Christmas party, and the tree, the vibrancy in the tree was fantastic. The greens, the reds, this, that, and the other thing, the detail and different things were just, it really just like jumped out at me how much, and we're talking like 2-3% difference here. You have to A/B, and I did, and that's how I saw this. So what was happening with the Panasonic is it had a high contrast scene, and it was kind of toning it for the projector, but the Zapiti was sending the full signal through, and the projector was handling it beautifully because it was a brighter type scene, and it looked awesome. So they both looked great. All right. You go to the Apple TV and anything, I remember seeing a little bit of it in Scarlet Witch show. I remember seeing it in especially Loki. In the Loki scene, there's a scene in the library, and you see the bookshelves on either side, and on either side of the bookshelves is just black. Well, that was crushing on the sides, and I'm like, I wonder if it's the stream or whatever. And then I went up and watched it on my television. I saw a little bit of it, but not as bad. And I'm like, oh, what is it? But then Foundation came along, and that thing it has some fantastic HDR. And there were scenes getting crushed left and right. And I was like, I got to solve this. So I tried HD Fury. I talked to my projector guy, Jim. He's like, try this, try that. And I'm like, And then finally, and all along, he's like, you should just get a Lumagen. And I'm like, I don't know. They're expensive. Is it that big of a difference? I hear that they're not, and this and that. And I'm like, if I can all I was looking for is something that would do what a Panasonic would do, like outboard, just give me that version, whatever's in the Panasonic. And if Panasonic ever comes out with a new player and it has a pass-through like the Oppo 203 did, like if the Oppo 203 had the processing that the Panasonic had, I never would have got rid of my 203, because I got rid of the 203 because the Panasonic had that great processing for projector owners. 203 didn't. I'd like to have an Oppo back now that I don't need that processing, but the 203, the Panasonic's great anyways. But anyways, my point is that the Oppo had the pass-through. You could put anything you want into it. You could just run right through it. I could run my Apple TV through the Oppo and let that processing happen, but I couldn't find anything that would do exactly what I wanted to do. I couldn't solve that problem. And then Jim's like, I got you a deal here. I got my guy, and I'm like, I'll bring it down to you on Monday. You just got to boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we did it. We put the movies in, and I was like, wow, they do look great. Wow, they look fantastic. Bug. And I was blown away. I was pleasantly surprised, probably as surprised as I was when I had my first calibration, when I first met Jim. That was a big deal to me, because projectors back then were so far off anyways, and now it's not as important. It's still great to have to get it calibrated, but it was a big improvement. But again, you have to know what you're looking for too, and even back then. So when we put in some discs, we put in Star Trek Into the Darkness, that opening scene. We did a few others that were just like that. He has test discs. I'm forgetting off the top of my head right now, but he's like, these look amazing. This is great. I'm like, oh, and they did. But then I said, let's go to some streaming. And we put on the scene from Foundation. Danny Speakers was here. I showed him, and he went home and he watched it on his. And it's like, I literally like I got chills, I got choked up. I was like, that is amazing. I was seeing things that I'd never seen before. And that's why you spend the money on an upgrade. That's why you get new pieces of equipment. Maybe you heard about it from somebody else, but you're getting it to solve a problem. You're not getting it to keep up with somebody. Like if you don't know what the problem is, then don't solve it. You don't even know you have a problem. You don't know anything. And that's why I'm so against unsolicited criticism, is because you're pointing out something that maybe you know about and that's good for you, but maybe they don't even know what you're talking about, and they need time. You pointing it out isn't going to make them learn it. All it's going to do is, it's like most people that do unsolicited criticisms are just trying to brag that they have a great piece, a great system. And it's like, that doesn't no good to the person that's newer to the hobby, doesn't understand what they don't understand yet. And you shouting out that you get to have this to make this better, that's great. And you might be right. Well, most likely I've found they're wrong, but even if you're right, they don't even know what that means yet. So it's, if somebody asks, that's great. And if somebody hey, what can I do to improve this? Even that's a loaded question. I'm like, I don't know. What do you want to improve? It's one of those, like, everything. Because anything I can do to my system, it's everything could improve it. So it's, don't chase because it just seems cool. Chase because you're actually trying to solve a problem. And that's how you learn. That's how your system grows. And that's how you appreciate everything that you've gotten and everything that you'll have in the future. It's because you solved something with it. And that's what I loved about, and this is all off of Blue Wave's comment about audio engineering and stuff like that. And we learned a lot from Paul. And I was happy listening at Zero before, and I'm happy with the knowledge and the information that I have, that we solved a problem that if you asked me a month ago, I didn't know I had. I wouldn't have known that. And we have a thread in the green room about it, and everything, we're dancing around it. And we actually are talking exactly about what Paul was saying, but we didn't understand it in the concept, in the context that Paul was saying. Like, there's room perception. Those words are all in our thread in the green room. And if you're not a member of the green room, by all means, just email me. It's AV Nirvana. It's a room just for, Brightside Home Theater listeners. I can get you into the green room. Todd's got a grant access. It's great. We have threads going on in there. And this thread is in there from months and months ago. And we were talking about exactly and we've started a new thread. Todd just started it, about this reference level stuff. And it's funny because when we were talking about it, we were just enthusiasts and we're dancing all around it, but we don't understand the context of what we're talking about. And Paul brings context to that, and facts and research, and it all falls into place. And you're like, that's what we were talking about. And it's like, we were all like right, but we were all wrong at the same time. It's like, I'm saying what this is that this means, and this is what this means, but this is this. And once you get the context, once you get the facts, you understand where it came from. It makes a lot more sense. And I feel like really comfortable. I love exactly what we're doing now. We have that, we'll call it the -6 rule, and we're having a good time with it. And I feel confident explaining that to people, what it means and everything like that. Whereas before it was like, I just listen at reference level. We got another one coming up. I'll probably talk about in the show tomorrow, maybe, that what reference level, like what our dials mean. Because of this conversation with Paul, everybody's telling me that what they listen at, but different dials mean different things. And I think there's a lot of people that don't know that, because they're telling me, like, how can you be listening at that level when I'm here? And it's like, it's two different meanings. It's two different settings. we're actually listening at the same thing. And that Todd and I hit on it the other day, and I was going to bring it up with him, but we're not like Todd and I never have anything to talk about. But there's that, and there's so much stuff. So much stuff. All right. I need a sip of water here. Oh, okay. That was some leftovers. Let me see what else we have here. Let's go to a new one that I have for the show tomorrow. I'll do one of those. Let's see. Is this a good one? Roomy remote set volume. This is actually a good one. This one comes from Mitch, and he says, "Hey DJ, I just heard your episode with John Brock, and recall you mentioning you didn't know how to set reference volume in Roomy. I also use Roomy, and how you do this is use the volume set and input the number you want. I was also at the M-Wave with John. We are also in the Discord for M-Wave. Hope to see you out there someday." And he says, "You can now do HomeKit scenes in Roomy as well. My HomeKit scene sets my lighting and controls the motorized curtain. When it's movie time, I also have a button for the bathroom lights, which lights the way in this more open concept theater. Hope this info helps, DJ. If you ever have any home automation questions or computer questions, just let me know. It's what I do, Mitch." And yeah, thanks, Mitch. And I replied back to him, and that one came in a little while ago. And the thing with me in Roomy is I love Roomy. Talked to Ralph about it, obviously, and it's just right now I don't have time to fiddle with that. I've got too many other things going, and when I got into it, I loved it. I added the stuff to my phone, but I saw what it did to me in my time, and how all of a sudden I was just like, oh my God, like I was just so focused on that, and that's what happens to me. I just, like, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to fix this. And I know I can solve the problems, and I'm sure with Mitch's help, I could dial this thing in and have it doing everything that I want. I just don't have the time to do that right now. And that is an option that I am considering in the new room. If I go that route, or I might just try and go just for the room, like a Control 4 or something like that. So I can add in some of maybe that Kaleidoscape stuff that I want to do. But the Roomy remote is a good option, especially for people. I'm surprised it isn't talked about more as a replacement for Harmony, because there's so much you can do with it. iPhone, Android, I'm pretty sure it does as well. I use an iPhone, but Ralph swears by it. Mitch, a lot of people are using this very, very well. It gets updates every day. I'm still I get the emails, I get the updates, all the new features they're constantly adding to it. And it seems really, really good, and a lot of fun for enthusiasts like us that want to fiddle, that want to be able to do this stuff and do some stuff that, you can only get, or you think you can only get with like a Control 4 system. The Roomy does a lot of these things where you hit a button and it has great macros, easier to do. But there is a learning curve to it. Whereas the Harmony didn't have that. It's not as steep a learning curve. It's pretty intuitive. That's why we loved it so much, but that took years and years to get to. And I'm willing to bet Sofa Baton will get there. In my opinion, what would be really cool is if Roomy Remote and Sofa Baton could get together, and Roomy Remote could actually have a actual remote, and then have using Roomy Remote software, and you integrate those two together. And like if Sofa Baton and Roomy Remote actually merged, I think we'd all be like, what was Harmony? What was that? Is like it, because honestly, it would probably blow it away, because you'd have that intuitiveness, and it would, hopefully they could lower that learning curve, and then you'd have a special remote for your dedicated theaters, And I mean, there's a lot of people that are like, I don't even need a remote anymore because you're using your Apple and a sound bar and stuff. That's not what we're talking about. When you're talking like you're running multiple things in a rack and you're trying to run a, a larger home theater system, you need more than just, you need a universal something. So I'm wondering if that to me seems like that would be really cool for us if the two got together. But right now I'm a little out of the tweaking world. Not a ton out of the tweaking world, but I am a little bit out of it, especially for big stuff like this, because a lot of what I'm going to tweak here, I'm just doing it for my son. He's getting a room. So, let's see. We got Scruffy saying, when someone asks me about starting a home theater, I ask them about what the theater experience is what about the theater experience is the most appealing to you? And I go from there. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I find a lot of people, they don't if they have a big picture, they don't even understand what they're looking for in sound. And they want to know how simple they can get it. But then I always say it comes to like a lot of, very, very new people are like, I don't know. I just want a big screen and I want a movie, like a movie theater. And so something like that, like what Scruffy's saying, like you'd say it's the big screen. So you start from there, but then it's like, well, what do you want for sound and how do you do that? Oh, I'll just do a sound bar. Okay. Well, and then they're going to want to know how much do I need to spend to get good sound? And it's like, that's a loaded question because what's good to you? I don't know. But you could spend some crazy money, but then I'm always like, well, if you spent a lot of money on a sound bar, that's it. It's wasted. You've got nowhere to go. And not wasted. You've got a sound bar, but upgradability, that's it. But if you start small with a small receiver and a few speakers, you can always add an upgrade and for maybe cheaper and get a better experience. But now I got to run some wires and some people don't want to do that. And I always find it funny when people want something and then you tell them what it takes and they're just back to like literally nothing. They don't want anything. It's like, you wanted a theater a second ago, but now all I told you is I got to like, all right, we'll order some speaker wire. And like, oh, I'm done. I'm out. Like, what? It's pretty fun. And like, that's the complication. Good thing you're out now because that's not the complicated part. Yes, very true, Joe. And no one is going to mention black levels at that starting point. No. Yeah, absolutely. Like, what are you looking for in your first home theater experience? Great black levels. Okay. Well, I can give you that with any television. You can too. Yeah, actually, every television, any projector, I can give you a spectacular black level. And I'm wondering how many people are going, no, you can't. No, you are wrong, DJ. I won't make you have to come on the show to prove me wrong, but yeah, you can get a perfect black level with any television. Everything from there on up is going to look like crap because any television can do black and do it as low as you want to do it. It has a floor, but then everything, now you're just turning the contrast, brightness all the way down. And it's like, well, look how deep and rich that black is. I can't see anything else on the screen because it's all like grayed out, but that looks really black to me in a black room with this projector. It looks fantastic. But yeah, Joe. Yup. Turn it off. And it's like, and that's the thing. And just like everybody says, oh, HDR is so much brighter. Not really. HDR projectors don't put out a brighter image than non-HDR projectors. It's perceived brightness because it can do HDR, high dynamic range, so it can show you really black next to really bright. But like you take a projector that isn't HDR and like a 1080p projector, and it's putting out X amount of nit. Wow, it's super bright. It still has that brightness. It just can't do it in a way. It doesn't have the processing to do that dark next to that bright. It's like we've had bright projectors before, HDR. It wasn't the actual like overall brightness that the projector can achieve. It's the actual idea that it can do this bright next to this dark. That's what HDR is. But that's a huge misconception that people are like, you know, it's so much brighter. And I'm like, okay, but that's what you want to go with. But yeah, so and with audio, the subs. I was talking with Todd about that the other day. It's like I started out without subs. And a lot of people don't know they need them. And I actually, if they don't mention it and they don't want it, I tell them like 5.1. A lot of people, you'll be like, all right, we'll start out with a 5.1 channel. And how many people ask what the 0.1 is? They don't. Most people don't ask what that is. And like, you get these 5 speakers and they're like, if they can't afford the subwoofer, that's what I eliminate. And be like, I'd rather give you a good 5 channels and have you have fun with that and get used to that. But I don't want to skimp elsewhere to try and get you your sub, because you get some good speakers, you get a decent receiver and some decent speakers, you're going to have bass anyways. You're just not going to have that LFE channel. And you're probably in a limited room. Very few people start in a dedicated room where a single sub is going to be easy to calibrate to the room. They're usually in a living room, open space, and the sub is, you know, it's a minimal gain at best in that situation, especially to a newbie. So they're probably not going to really appreciate it too much. Whereas just give them 5 channels and let them experience some pans and some nice explosions that you can still get with running your speakers at full range. And then, you know, after a while, and they're like, you know, they want to explore that subwoofer world. I went through it, and that's one of the biggest upgrades you can ever do. And I really hate for people to miss out on that, experiencing that upgrade, because if you do it right from jump, they don't know, they're never really going to listen to a 5-channel system without a sub. And when they do, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that sounds flat. That sounds awful. It's so much more fun to go in the other direction and be like, I thought that was awesome. And now I feel like, how did I live this long without you, Mr. Subwoofer? And that, to me, that's the experience. That's the fun. That's how these things should go. You know, you get everything all at once, you don't appreciate it. You don't know what you have. So, as you can tell, my voice is going. It's been a while since I've done a show like this by myself. But thank you, everybody in the chat. I mean, I know this was an emergency. We've had people popping in and out. We got Blue Wave. Joe just jumped in. Joe Hotzel. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for everything, buddy. Chris, Scruffy, TJ, Johnny, and who else? We got TJ going back here. Brock, Brett, all these people. Thank you very much for chiming in. Be back tomorrow. If you're hearing this audio, this takeover Tuesday on Tuesday, John, Steve, and I will be back later this afternoon at 5 p.m. Tuesday the 11th. Very excited to get back, all 3 of us on the bus bench. John had the week off last week because of the 4th of July holiday. But yeah, thanks everybody for everything. We're coming up on 300 episodes, and it's you guys are the ones keeping me going. You kept me going when it was just me, and you're keeping us going now, you know, driving it. And if you want to be on the show, by all means, just reach out. If you know people that want to be on the show, just email me, dj@brightsidehometheater.com, and we'll schedule something out. And don't be shy. I get why you are. It isn't easy to do until you get here and you realize how easy it is to do. But yeah, and as people have commented, trying to get me on other shows, if just have them email me. I'll go anywhere. I love talking home theater, and I'll bring my flavor of enthusiasm to their show. And yeah, and if you want to debate me, you think I'm wrong on something, by all means. I have my reasons, and it's fun to debate people because I'm sure you have your reasons as well. And you know, that if you think you have an opinion that is different from mine, which would make you think mine is wrong, I guarantee you there's people that think like you do. And maybe I am wrong, and you'll change my mind. Or at the very least, what you would do is we would point out that there's more than one way to think of something. And I guarantee you there's other ways of thinking, and there's other people thinking it at the same time. Some of my best friends in home theater, we all think of things a little differently, but we all respect that. And, you know, like, you're not wrong for thinking what you're thinking most of the time. So, all right. That will do it. You know, we're on YouTube, streaming on Twitter. You can catch me on Twitter at BrightSideHT. You can join if you want to join in. We have an HT community there. Just reach out. Say you want to be invited to join the HT community on Twitter. You can do that. Reach out, DM me, email me. Same if you want to get in the green room, DM me, email me, same thing. Many ways, links are in the show notes. And if you want to support on Patreon, we have that too. I don't say that a lot, but we have that going as well. So you can go over to patreon.com/Brightside Home Theater and monthly donations, all that fun stuff. You guys know how it works. If you don't, and you want, you know, and you can buy us boxes of popcorn, website, there's so much stuff. I'd rather just talk home theater. I don't like talking this stuff. So, but all the support's appreciated. Get my name out there, get the show's name, not my name, get the show's name out there. And, we'll have more and more fun as the years go, and 300, if not more, way more episodes to come. So thanks everybody. And you know what you got to do.
Go push play.
What he said.
Thanks everybody. Have a great night.